Welcome to Martha's Stories.
I set the casserole dish on the table. The same one Rick used to ask for on his birthday. Cheddar crust, garlic, rosemary. Baked to a golden crisp. My hands still ached from grating the cheese. Kevin walked in, gave it a once-over, then laughed. "You really think we're eating that?" He turned to his sister. "Jenna, come look. Dinner from 1954. Jenna didn't miss a beat. "God, Mom, it smells like an old folks' home." She pulled out her phone. "This is going on my story, prehistoric cuisine." Then Kevin lifted the dish with both hands and dumped the entire thing in the trash. I didn't speak. Didn't flinch. Just stood there, watching the cheese slide off the edge of the pan and onto the trash bag like something unholy. I walked upstairs. It wasn't anger that moved me. Not even pain. It was the silence inside me. A silence that had been building for years. I opened the drawer in the back of my closet, the one behind the stack of old linens, and pulled out the manila folder I hadn't touched in 15 years. It held the deed to the house. My house. Paid off since 2006. Every mortgage check signed by my hand. No one else's. Downstairs, they were laughing again. Loud. Careless. Kevin called out, "Don't worry, Mom. We'll order real food." I came back down and set the folder on the table where the casserole had been. The same table where they used to do their homework. Where Rick once cut out paper snowflakes with them, before the cancer took him. "You have 30 days, I said, my voice flat. "To find somewhere else to live." Kevin blinked. "What?" "You're not serious," Jenna muttered. I didn't repeat myself. I just opened the folder, pulled out a printed copy of the eviction notice I'd had a lawyer draft last year, just in case, and placed it beside their phones. Jenna's mouth dropped. Kevin looked for a punchline. There wasn't one. "You laughed when you threw away my dinner," I said. "Now laugh somewhere else." No one spoke. That silence? That's what it sounds like when a woman stops apologizing for existing. I turned and walked out the door. Left it open behind me. Sometimes you don't slam the door. Sometimes you just don't close it for them anymore. I didn't leave. I just stopped staying. They didn't erase me. I walked off the page. 3 months ago, they called it temporary. Jenna had just filed for divorce. Kevin said his startup folded, again. I said yes before they even asked. That was my mistake. I didn't ask what temporary meant. I cleared out 2 bedrooms, packed up my books, my puzzles, my husband's record player. I moved into the small den off the kitchen, the one with no closet and one tiny window facing the neighbor's fence. I called it cozy. Jenna called it suitable. The first week, I made cinnamon rolls. Jenna picked at hers, said they were too sweet. Kevin asked if I had oat milk. They didn't unpack right away. Boxes sat in the hallway for days. Kevin left his gym bag on the dining table. Jenna plugged her phone into my reading lamp and left it there. They moved through my house like it was a hotel lobby. I tried to stay helpful. Quiet. I did their laundry without being asked. Washed extra towels. Bought almond butter. I told myself it was just an adjustment. That family helped family. That one day, they'd help me back. But help turned into expectation faster than I saw it coming. Kevin started calling me Roomy like it was funny. Jenna began introducing me to her friends on speakerphone as our live-in grandmother. I laughed along. But each laugh hollowed me out. I remember one night, 2 weeks in. I made my husband's meatloaf recipe, his favorite. Set the table with the blue plates. Lit a candle. Just trying to make it feel like home again. Kevin walked in late, smelled the food, and asked, "Did you forget I'm vegetarian now?" Jenna took one bite, said, "It's kind of dry," and went back to scrolling. No thank you. No effort. Just silence and crumbs. After they left the table, I sat there alone. Candles still flickering. Their plates half full. The wine untouched. That night, I found my husband's sweater in the closet. The one he wore every Christmas. I sat with it folded in my lap, the scent of cedar faint but still there. "You didn't die," I whispered. "But they live like I did." It wasn't grief. It was something else. Something colder. When you give everything for so long, people start to believe it costs you nothing. They weren't cruel. They were careless. And that's worse. Because cruelty you can fight. But carelessness? That's how people disappear without a sound. They didn't stop loving me. They stopped seeing me. You're not unwanted. You're just expected to take up less space. I didn't cry that night. I just laid the sweater back in the drawer, careful with the sleeves. And I made a quiet promise to myself. I'd never be that invisible again. The night I overheard them, I wasn't trying to listen. I had gone to the kitchen for a glass of water. It was late. Nearly midnight. I moved quietly in my slippers, the way you do in your own home when you're trying not to wake the people you love. Their voices drifted from the living room. I paused at the hallway, not because I meant to eavesdrop, just because of how Jenna said my name. She won't last another year in this house, she whispered. The stairs, the cleaning, the garden, she's already slowing down. We should just talk to a lawyer. If she puts it in both our names now, we can avoid the mess later. Kevin laughed, soft but sharp. Why talk? Just keep being nice. Give her a few compliments. She'll sign anything. She thinks we're helping her. I'm not saying we steal it, Jenna said. Just, she doesn't need all this space. And honestly, she could use the structure of a retirement place. They do her pills, meals, everything. She'd probably be safer there. Kevin added, and we could Airbnb the guest room. Easily cover mortgage, if there even is one. They clinked glasses. Wine, probably. I'd bought that bottle last week. A treat. I thought we'd share it. I backed away, slow and quiet, glass of water untouched. My hand was shaking by the time I reached my bedroom. I didn't cry, but I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floral wallpaper I'd put up 20 years ago, thinking, this is how they talk when they think you're already gone. They weren't just planning a life without me. They were rehearsing it. You're not dead, but they're already dividing the furniture. They call it concern. It feels like erasure. The next morning, Kevin made me coffee. Smiled. Asked if I needed anything from the store. Jenna folded a blanket and told me she was so grateful. I don't know what we'd do without you, she said. I nodded. Stirred the sugar. Tasted the lie. That afternoon, I walked to the small law office 3 blocks away. The one where Rick and I had updated our will. The receptionist was new, young, polite. Can I help you? She asked. I smiled gently. Yes, dear. I'd like to make sure that when I'm gone, no one can sell what I built out from under me. And that's when it started. Not the end. The extraction. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. That's not how women like me were raised. We don't cause scenes, we adapt. But something in me had shifted, quiet and irreversible. The next morning, I didn't make breakfast. No toast. No coffee. No soft-boiled eggs in the blue cups Jenna likes. I simply got dressed, tied my scarf, and walked out the front door without a word. I didn't take my phone. I didn't leave a note. I just left. The bus stop was 5 blocks away, near the old dry cleaners. My knees ached, but I didn't stop. The air had that late autumn bite. It cut through my coat, but I welcomed it. I boarded the 47 downtown and took a window seat. The ride was slow, school zones, blinking lights, stop signs, but I didn't mind. I hadn't sat still like this in weeks. At the last stop, I got off and wandered. No plan. No destination. That's how I found the diner. A narrow place with a red awning and faded vinyl booths. I'd been there once, years ago, with Rick after a doctor's appointment. They still had the same neon sign, coffee. Pie. Answers. I went in and sat at the counter. The woman behind it looked up from the register. Middle-aged. Kind eyes. What can I get you, hon? Coffee, I said. And whatever pie you like best. She poured the coffee, slid over a plate of cherry pie with a lopsided crust, and refilled the sugar without being asked. You look like you needed to get away from something, she said, not unkindly. I did, I replied. But I'm realizing I wasn't the one who needed space. I was just the one finally taking it. She nodded, like she understood. You'd be surprised how many women walk in here saying that. I stayed an hour. Watched people come and go. Watched the waitress talk to regulars like they were old friends. No one knew me here. And for the first time, that felt like peace. You stop being invisible the moment you choose to be seen somewhere else. I wasn't walking away. I was walking back to myself. Before I left, I tipped well. Too well, probably. But it felt right. Outside, the wind had picked up. My scarf whipped against my cheek. I didn't fix it. I let it stay wild. On the bus ride home, I didn't feel small. I felt contained. Quiet, like a fire in a sealed room. Still burning. Just waiting. When I got home that evening, the hallway was dark. Jenna's heels were by the door. Kevin's gym bag spilled across the entryway like always. I stepped over it. In the kitchen, Jenna was on her phone. She didn't look up. Just said, "Where were you?" "Out," I answered. "Needed air." She hummed, uninterested. "Kevin's upset. Something about the bank. They flagged the account again. Said he's missing documentation." I paused. "What account?" She shrugged. "The house one. The utilities and taxes. He said you gave him access months ago." I hadn't. I walked into the den and opened my desk drawer. The paperwork I kept, statements, receipts, passwords, was shuffled, out of order. I never left it like that. Kevin had been in here. I knew it the way you know when something sacred's been touched without care. Later that night, I opened my laptop. My banking app was locked. Wrong password. 3 tries in, and I got the message, "Account disabled. Contact your administrator." Administrator? I checked the email link to it. It had been changed to Kevin's. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I closed the laptop. Then I made a list. The next day, I went back to the law office. This time, I brought everything. Property deed. Identity documents. The will Rick and I signed in '98. The lawyer, a tall man in his 40s with a warm voice, reviewed it quietly. "Your son can't access your accounts unless you granted him power of attorney," he said. I didn't. "Then we reverse this. And we make sure it doesn't happen again." I nodded. He slid a form across the desk. "We can add a clause to your estate. One that makes it very clear, this house doesn't transfer unless you say so." I signed without hesitation. They didn't steal my power. They just assumed I wouldn't use it. That night, I unplugged the Wi-Fi router. Jenna stormed in 20 minutes later, furious. "Is something wrong with the internet?" I stirred my tea. I needed a break. She scoffed. "You can't just." "I can," I said softly. "It's my account." She stared at me, not sure what to say. For the first time, I saw it, doubt. A crack in the performance. "You helped. But now, you're in the way. I was your safety net. Not your property." The silence that followed wasn't angry. It was calculating. Good. Let them calculate. I was already packing my next move. By Saturday morning, I'd stopped answering their questions. Kevin asked if I'd seen the mail key. Jenna needed help with laundry settings again. I smiled, nodded, moved through the house like smoke. That afternoon, while they were out, I opened the cedar chest at the foot of my bed. Inside was a file folder labeled "Later." Derek's handwriting. His will, letters, documents, things I hadn't touched since he passed. I took out the small envelope, sealed and brittle, and placed it gently into my purse. Next, I pulled out the number I'd scribbled weeks ago. A listing for a small 1-bedroom off Linwood Avenue. Utilities included. Ground floor. No stairs. I called. A woman answered. Calm voice. "Yes, the unit's still available. You can come see it Monday. I'll text you the address." I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat very still for a long time. Not from fear. From relief. I didn't pack. Not yet. That would draw attention. Instead, I moved room to room, noting what mattered. Which books I'd take. Which photos. How many boxes I'd need. That night, Jenna poured herself a glass of wine while I chopped vegetables. "I talked to Kevin," she said casually. "He's hurt. Says you don't trust him." I kept chopping. "He feels rejected. You could have handled it differently." I looked at her. "I didn't reject him. I protected myself." She rolled her eyes. "He's family. Isn't that what family's for? To steal passwords and reroute bank accounts?" I said it gently, but the air in the room shifted. She scoffed, sipped her wine, and left. I wasn't angry. I was done. Later that evening, I drafted a letter. Not to them. To myself. A list. Monday, 10 a.m., apartment viewing. Tuesday, bank appointment, new account. Thursday, call moving company. Friday, change locks. Leave by next weekend. It wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was precision. It was choosing air after years underwater. I didn't explode. I evaporated. No announcements. No warnings. Just freedom in motion. I slid the list into my Bible, tucked it between Psalms and Proverbs. A quiet place for a quiet escape. The next morning, I stood in the backyard, coffee warm in my hands. The grass hadn't been mowed in weeks. I didn't care. I was already gone. Just not physically yet. But soon. Very soon. Monday came with soft rain and a gray sky. I wore my husband's old coat, heavy wool, too warm for the season, but comforting. The sleeves were still a little too long. He used to fold them back for me. The apartment complex on Linwood was quieter than I'd expected. Brick building, clean walkway, a little garden out front with marigolds and cracked gnomes. I liked it immediately. The manager, a woman in her 50s named Teresa, met me at the gate. "You must be Margaret," she said. "Come on in, I've got the key." She unlocked the door to Unit 3A. The place was small, yes, but clean and full of light. Wooden floors, no stairs, a window over the sink. "You live alone?" she asked, watching me scan the space. "For the first time in a long time," I said. She didn't press. Just nodded slowly. "You look like someone who finally chose herself." I blinked. "That obvious?" She smiled. "You'd be surprised how many women your age come through here looking exactly the way you do. Quiet. Determined. Done." I signed the paperwork that afternoon. Before I left, she handed me the keys wrapped in a plain manila envelope. "You don't have to explain anything to anyone," she said. "Sometimes leaving isn't abandonment. It's arrival. You don't owe people the version of you they invented. Leaving quietly doesn't mean you didn't survive loudly." I stopped at a coffee shop on the way back. The barista, early 20s, pink hair, pierced lip, took my order with barely a glance. But as she handed me the cup, she paused. "I like your coat." "Thank you," I said. "It was my husband's." She tilted her head. "You wear it like armor." I smiled. "Maybe I do." I sat by the window and watched the street for a while. People passed in a rush, suits, strollers, umbrellas flapping in the wind. I didn't rush. I had nowhere to be but where I chose. For the first time in decades, that truth settled in without guilt. By the time I got home, Kevin had already eaten. Jenna was watching TV. Neither noticed when I walked in. Or maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't know what to say. Good. Let the silence grow roots. Let it whisper what I never needed to shout. I was your background noise. Until I muted myself. They noticed something was different the day I emptied the hallway closet. Not all at once, just the things that were mine. My raincoat. My umbrella. The scarf Derek gave me on our 30th anniversary. I folded them into a single bag, tucked neatly by the front door. That afternoon, Jenna followed me into the kitchen, arms crossed. "Are you going somewhere?" "I am," I said. "Soon." She blinked. "You can't just leave, Mom. This is your home." "No," I said. "This was my home. It stopped being that when I started hiding in corners." She huffed, a laugh without humor. "You're overreacting. We didn't mean to upset you. You didn't have to mean it. You just had to do it." Kevin walked in halfway through. "What's going on?" "She's leaving," Jenna snapped. "She thinks we're, what, using her?" I looked at them both, not angry. Just tired. "You threw away my dinner and laughed. You rewrote my passwords. You talked about my house like it was already yours." I reached into the drawer and placed 2 envelopes on the table. One for each of them. "What is this?" Kevin asked. 30-day notice. Formal. Legal. Signed and filed. You'll need to start looking for other accommodations. Jenna's mouth opened. "You're evicting your own children?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm reclaiming my home." Kevin picked up the envelope like it burned. "This is insane." I turned toward the sink, rinsed my mug, placed it on the rack. "You always said I was too quiet. Too soft. But silence isn't weakness." Then I looked up. "Now you know what silence sounds like from someone who always showed up." Jenna stepped closer, voice lower. "You won't survive alone." That one made me smile. Not because it was funny, Because it was familiar. Like a script they rehearsed together. I already have, I said. You just weren't looking. Kevin tried one last angle. This is temporary, right? You'll come around. I shook my head. No, I won't. I was your landing pad. You turned me into a launch pad. You didn't cut me off. I disconnected. And with that, I walked upstairs. No slamming doors. No tears. Only footsteps. Measured. Final. They searched for me the week I left. Called my old friends. Messaged neighbors. Left voicemails that started with guilt and ended in panic. Mom, just tell us where you are. Okay, we get it, you're upset. But this is extreme. You don't just disappear. That's not who you are. But it was. I left on a Friday morning. 2 suitcases. 1 plant. A folder of documents. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even lock it because by then I'd already changed the locks 2 days before. The apartment on Linwood was ready. Clean floors. Quiet air. My books on the shelf, my mugs in the cabinet. No boxes marked theirs. Just mine. For once. That weekend, they tried to access the house. The lawyer called me Monday. Calm voice. They tried to contest the deed, he said. Said you weren't of sound mind. I laughed. A dry, steady thing. That's funny. I've never thought more clearly. He chuckled. Thought you might say that. Everything's in place. The new will, the bank accounts, the title, all untouchable without your signature. You've protected yourself well. Good, I said. Let them learn what no sounds like from someone who said yes too long. I didn't just leave. I rewrote the ending. They won't find me. Not really. Not the version they used to bend. Not the shadow that fed them, paid for them, held them like children when they were grown. That woman is gone. This one doesn't leave crumbs. Jenna tried to text again. We can work this out. You're being dramatic. Kevin sent a voice note. I didn't listen. My new number isn't saved in their phones. My address isn't on file. They have no map. Because I'm not a destination anymore. I'm a departure. I did leave something behind, though. A framed photo in the entryway. Me and Derek, young, wind in our hair. Behind the glass, tucked in the frame, a note. This house knew love once. Then it knew duty. I left before it forgot the difference. You didn't lose me. I walked out of reach. No one stole your mother. You just never learned to keep her. I sat by the window that evening, the city humming below. No footsteps above. No voices down the hall. Just space. Mine. Sunday morning came quiet. No banging doors. No footsteps above. No passive-aggressive sighs from across the hallway. Just the hum of the kettle, the sound of birds on the power line outside. I baked. Not for them. Not out of habit or obligation. For myself. An apple crisp, simple, warm, fragrant. The kind Derek used to make when the kids were small. I sliced the apples slow, without rushing, without listening for anyone else's schedule. I mixed the cinnamon and brown sugar like a ritual. Folded memory into butter and oats. The oven filled the apartment with scent. Not of childhood, but of reclamation. I didn't play music. I didn't scroll. I just stood at the counter and watched the timer tick down. I served myself a small piece. Poured coffee. Sat by the window in my robe and let the steam fog the glass. The sky outside was pale blue. A breeze lifted the curtain beside me. Somewhere, someone laughed. But not at me. Not anymore. There were no messages this morning. No calls. Maybe they'd given up. Maybe they finally understood. Maybe not. It didn't matter. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you bake at 350 degrees until it smells like peace. The table was set for one. No empty chairs. No pretending someone might show up. Just me. Present. Whole. I opened the notebook I'd been keeping. Not a journal. Just scraps of thought. On the first page, I wrote. I was your safety net. You jumped too hard. I cut the rope. Then I closed it. Pushed it aside. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was clean. The crisp was warm, soft at the center, golden at the edges. I took a bite slow. Let it settle. Across from me, the other chair stayed empty. I didn't fill it. There are endings that cry. Mine whispered. There are exits that burn. Mine disappeared. They might tell people I snapped. That I went bitter. That I lost my grip. Let them. I don't owe anyone the version of me they needed me to be. I only owe myself the quiet that follows honesty. Sometimes love is just the end of explanations. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe, it only gets stronger from here.